right, hello everyone. Hope you're doing well. My name is Jessica. I'm a senior at Harvard, obviously studying computer science and education. Iris, do you want to introduce yourself really quickly?
Yeah, I'm Iris and I'm a sophomore and I am studying economics of a secondary in CS and I'm in career
Nice.
house. Woo!
Nice. Yeah, we're both quadlings in four. I'm in four summer house. And so today our workshop is on community building. And so we're kind of coming at this with an angle of both being leaders within Harvard College Faith in Action, as well as some of the other orgs that we're a part of. And essentially we want to answer the main question, like how do you approach vulnerability and openness within spaces? It's something that I know we've all been really curious about and have been thinking about as leaders in our organizations, as well as within this class as well, talking about how do you approach that. So Iris, do you want to go to the next slide? So I'll just quickly introduce myself a little bit. So as I said, I am a leader within Harvard College Faith in Action. So I'm one of the vice presidents. And besides in HCFA, so we've been talking about like community and other organizations that I've been a part of as well. So I've been a member and supervisor within Y2Y, the homeless shelter within Harvard Square. I was also a part of Kumba and WIC, so Women in Computer Science. And so all these organizations all have different ways of approaching community and vulnerability, but we wanted to come at this with an angle specifically within HCFA because of the emphasis of relationships and community within faith communities in general. And essentially just being a part of this organization has really helped me think more about like what does it mean to build community, what does it mean for people to want to be in strong friendships with each other. And so this is something that Iris and I have both care a lot about and have thought a lot about. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me, and now Iris will give a little bit about her.
Yeah, so just echoing what Jessica said, I'm also part of the HCFA, not the exact leadership, but underneath them, I'm a communications ministry team leader. So basically I run like social medias and emails and things like that. But really, I think like it's interesting because I wasn't really a part of HCFA as like heavily as I was in other organizations in freshman year, but now it has become a huge part of my life. It's where I spend my Thursday evenings, and just like the people that I talk to now are just all like friends from HCFA. So really emphasizing like the community that HCFA has built for both me and Jessica in different ways. But yeah, I'm also part of the HSA, of course. I'm an MD there, managing director. I'm also a part of the Frisbee team where that has such a tight knit community as well, and the Asian American Christian Fellowship, as well as Harvard Yearbook publications. So that's just a little bit more about me, and then we'll jump right into the question that Jessica brought up earlier. So what we found, especially when things are virtual, it's really hard for people to like get to know one another. As I mentioned in my own research design, the first years have the most trouble with just getting acquainted with others and meeting other people and wanting to be even in like a Zoom with other people that they may not have ever met in their life. So what we really focused on was how we can encourage people to be vulnerable and honest in their student organizations, as that's where most of the social life will happen for many college students. And then to do this, so in our workshop, we'll have it's a two-part workshop. So first, we'll just introduce some good community building practices. And then after that, we'll follow up with applications. So, modeling these practices and trying it out together in our little classroom here.
Sorry, I'm not sure why that happened.
No worries.
Nice. Yeah, so the first part is essentially Iris and I are just sharing a little bit about what we think are some good community practices. Oh, so yeah, you can go to the next slide. So the first one we thought of was sharing yourself. So I think one of the most important parts in terms of building a community where people are open and honest and vulnerable is when you are willing to do that yourself. And so just carrying that out as a leader in your organization and just therefore encouraging other people to do it. So personally, my experience with HCFA, I've definitely like fluctuated as a member within the community throughout my freshman through senior year. So freshman year, for example, I joined freshman fall and I saw a bunch of upperclassmen and I saw like the friends that they had, but I didn't really feel like I connected as well with like those upperclassmen or even with people in my year. And then kind of fast forward like to sophomore year, I did like feel a little more part of a community. I knew some more people. I knew like what was going on, but I think I still wasn't really able to like foster those relationships where I felt there were a lot of people where I could be vulnerable with. And then later on in my um, the summer before junior year, we have this thing called pre-retreat. So essentially, the sophomores through seniors, usually leaders, but also like whoever wants to come, will go to some, I think it was in New Hampshire, like a retreat in New Hampshire at the beginning of August or at the end of August, and kind of just talk, like have open space before school started and before you had to worry about like all the anxieties with school and everything. And so there was a night where we had some students just share things that they were struggling with, and just people in the community would listen and just be open, be and receptive of what they were going through and what they wanted to talk about. And so even though like I didn't feel brave enough to share in that instance, I definitely saw the examples that other people were setting. And afterwards, I was definitely very much encouraged to talk to other people about things that kind of resonated with me, things that I was struggling with as well. And so I think kind of just looking at that and thinking about kind of how I've grown as a leader and things that I've shared with the HCFA community, and specifically just because I think it's been one of the most open and vulnerable spaces that I've been in at within Harvard's campus. I think kind of just looking at that and looking at the example of just how that person set an example for me and encouraged me to share later. And therefore, once I shared later, and then I was able to kind of open up to other people within the community, whether that be like in a larger setting or even just like with another person who may need to hear what you're going through.
And then our next one is informal spaces. So it's very natural for student organizations to host a plethora of events. So whether it be like for in HCFA's case, there's Doxa, so our large group on Thursdays, or it's like our Bible courses, which are Bible studies that are throughout the week and grade specific and gender specific. So there's just like a lot of programming that goes on. However, like what we found, what me and Jessica personally found, is that there needs to be also like spaces for people to just have fun, where there's no like really no planned programming, but like just a space for people to naturally get to know each other outside of like the typical like sitting there at Bible study and discussing like things about like Jesus and things like that. We find that like when it comes to community, it's very easy for people, like one, for HCFA, everyone relates because they're all like interested in Christianity or that they want to know more. However, there's also like a lot of things outside of HCFA and Christianity that people can bond over. So we found that like having informal spaces for that is especially important. I remember in my freshman year, I only went to the Bible studies and I couldn't really grasp like into the community because I only went to like that one programmed event each week. So it was nice like to be with other people and studying the scripture. However, without like going to those informal spaces and being present and being there, it's really hard to tap into the community and be a part of it, especially like when it comes to being a student leader. um if everything is just like work or like just focused on like the main programming things, it's kind of hard for people to have fun and feel relaxed. So we recommend just hosting like socials or like just time for people to chill and talk together. I know HCFA, like when it is in person, they always host like events with food, so people would just come get food and just chat with each other, and that's how like people get to know each other and really like form these deep relationships. A huge plus, like in this picture you see Chick-fil-A. Like HCFA like always has Chick-fil-A for some reason, and it's so awesome because everyone loves Chick-fil-A, and it really helps people like bond and just get to know each other outside of like the usual sitting and listening and like worshiping together. So yeah.
Nice. And yeah, so our last kind of tip or like best practice that we wanted to share was just essentially just being comfortable with how things are and with where people are at and what specific time. I mean, especially now, I think everyone is kind of learning to adjust to anything that they may be going through. And so essentially, if you are to have a more facilitated group where you are like practicing vulnerability or just like encouraging members to be vulnerable, just really not forcing anyone to participate and just allowing people to listen or just like come in with their full selves and be at the place that they're at. And so I guess kind of going back to the example that I gave earlier in terms of like hearing someone else share and how that encouraged me to share later in like smaller groups or in larger groups, like even if someone doesn't necessarily decide to share in the moment, it doesn't mean that they aren't more encouraged to be vulnerable later or that they don't feel like more trust within the community. And so I think it's really important to realize like not to kind of count like how many people like were willing to share, like is that a metric of like success, or was I successful in creating a vulnerable space because like this many people shared or this many people participated, but rather being like having the space, kind of what Iris was saying in terms of informal space as well. So like just opening up that space for people to be able to share and participate is just great in itself because it encourages trust in the community and encourages people to want to be vulnerable in the future, even if they don't necessarily share in that time being. So yeah, that's a little bit about some of our best practices. I guess, does anyone have any questions about that before we move into like modeling some of these things? Okay, cool.
Yeah, so now let's just jump right into it and like put these things into action. So our first one is we're going to create a space for sharing and vulnerability. So outlined next are just 3 questions, and we would just like to invite everyone, if they want to just share a response to one of these questions. Like feel free to type it in the chat or like speak out. Jessica and I will go first, and we're going to stop the recording so people don't feel uncomfortable. But yeah. Oh, yay, we finished. I can share the results really fast. Remaining time. So Alexa wanted someone to draw a duck and just thought it was a hippo.
That does look like a duck. I'm just really bad at guessing.
Who wanted Widener and got a map? Jess wanted a duck. Rachel wanted a dog and Jess got a cat. Oh, they got a cat.
That's pretty close.
And then a relaxing potato became a face. Wine bottle became a bottle of wine. Hey,
okay, let's go. Let's go.
We got one. Oh, this unicorn became a bug eating a triangle. And then we have a big bear holding an umbrella while eating a banana. And we got monkey floating with a banana.
Nice.
And then we have bear holding ice cream. And then we got a bear.
Nice.
So funny. It's a bear theme. But yeah, thank you all for playing the game with us. Hopefully you guys had fun. But yeah, I think that wraps up our workshop. Thank you again for listening to us, and yeah.
Yeah, and we can share the slides with you all. But yeah, just to quickly run through it again, the main 3 practices: share yourself, open yourself up, form informal spaces, and then just be comfortable with how people are and where they're at. But yeah, thank you again for joining us, and I hope you guys had fun.